Thank you so much for coming up here. I know you're having a great time down the trade show, checking out all the booths, talking to all the vendors down there. Going to introduce myself briefly. I'm Wade Murray. I'm a city councillor out of Regina, but I'm also a board member with SUMA. So I'm just going to advise really quickly that all of the audio is being recorded here, so really be careful with some of those words. Sean, you know what I'm talking about. That's right. We heard that the Premier earlier had a couple of them that were really close, so we want to be careful on that. So I'm going to ask that when we're all wrapped up here and after the ladies are done speaking to you, if you do have questions, there are going to be some microphones here. Make sure you come to those microphones and speak clearly into the microphones and also introduce yourself. So I'm going to move right along here. Remind delegates, hospitality night, that's going to come afterward. I'll talk to you about that one. All right, so I'm going to introduce really quickly these two young ladies up to your left, my right. First of all, we've got Carrie Stockley. Carrie is a Learning Centre instructor with WestJet Airlines based out of Toronto. She received her Bachelor of Science from the University of Toronto and her Bachelor of Education from the University of Western Ontario prior to joining WestJet team as a customer service representative. So after working for 5 years on the front line, Carrie transitioned to her current role where she instructs new and current customer service agents. You guys aren't helping me any here. Carrie has successfully facilitated classes across Canada and also in the U.S. and several of WestJet's contracted handlers. You'll have to get into that a little bit for us. I'm not sure what that means, but that's okay. She's also played a critical role with numerous seasonal restarts. Okay, that's good. I'm not sure what that is either, so I'm sure you're going to be able to fill us in on this stuff. That's great. Such as Chicago and Windsor, as well as successfully launching the WestJet Encore operations into Brandon, Manitoba. Has Brandon got a place to land those things? Okay, sorry. And then we've got Kaylee here as well. So Kaylee Renton is from the Learning Centre instructor as well from WestJet Airlines based out of Toronto, and she received her BA in Sociology from Brock University in St. Catharines. Her Bachelor of Education from Niagara University while working with WestJet team as a customer service agent. And after working for 3 years on the front line, Kaylee shifted positions to put her education background to use in the current role as learning instructor, customer service agents, and guest service ambassadors in her current role. Kaylee delivers the building blocks for agents' technical and customer service needs to be successful in their roles while continuing to offer a service that makes WestJet Canada's most preferred airline. You guys hear that? You agree with that? Who agrees with that? Preferred airline. It's because of these young ladies here. So I'm going to ask them to come on up here and let's get this show on the road. Ladies?
Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. We'd like to say thank you for inviting us up to talk to you today and give you a little bit of insight into what we know about dealing with conflict. So some of you may be familiar with the airports. It certainly can be a challenging environment for our agents, and we do offer a lot of tools and techniques for our agents to survive that environment, especially during the winter season, as some of you might have traveled through that. So we're going to walk you through some of what we do and what we know about not letting conflict suck the life out of you and dealing with difficult citizens. So we're going to bring you into the WestJet culture a little bit this morning. We're not going to get you up and dancing, or I guess this afternoon. I'm still behind. And we want to start with one of the most important things and pillars for our organization is safety. So we really pride ourselves on taking a time to stop and think about a safety moment. So we thought we'd do that here with all of you today. So our safety moment for everyone in this room, many of you likely traveled here either by car, by plane, and we just want to take the moment to remind you to take those extra seconds to, defrost your windshield, be able to see before you get into your car. You might have been running late for this conference this morning, or the bus might not have been able to get you here. So we just want to take a moment to remind everybody that that's super important, not only for your safety, but for the safety of those around you. So we thought we'd bring you into how we start all of our meetings and all of our training sessions and get it started. So, you've already learned a little bit about us. I guess we'll have to give a little bit of a lesson around what a restart is and a new start. And we can do that at the end, certainly. It's definitely language that we use in our everyday. Carrie and I have both been very fortunate to start stations up in different provinces and states around the country. We both actually had the opportunity to open up Chicago last year, and it was a very rewarding experience for both of us. A contracted handler, Wade, is for a station that does not have WestJetters working there, and we use a contract to help us get the job done and get you to where you need to go. So we work with a lot of different groups, and that's just one of them. Like mentioned, I am a learning and development instructor. So I did go to school to teach children. After completing that, I realized that I didn't exactly love teaching children, and if that is what happens, probably not a good idea to stay there. So lucky for me, an opportunity presented itself in adult education with WestJet. I was a customer service agent for 2.5 years in Toronto, and now I call learning and development home. So I'm proud to call that my house. And other than that, that's pretty much it. But we'll have questions later if there are any, and I'll take it over to Carrie.
Perfect. So I am Carrie Stockley, and I am also a learning and development instructor with WestJet. So you heard a little bit about what we do. I had the opportunity to, again, work frontline in the Toronto airport for 5 wonderful years before transitioning over into this role. And it was amazing, and I think it's provided both Kaylee and I a lot of insight and tools that we can give to you as well to help deal with those difficult situations. So that is our goal for today. We are a pretty interactive bunch. We're hoping you're all a very interactive bunch. Everybody enjoyed Super Bowl yesterday.
Woohoo! Football! No?
Everybody's happy it's Monday and you are here this afternoon.
Yay! Perfect.
All right, so that is what we were aiming for.
That was the easy question, so we're clearly doing well. This is good.
Not so bad so far.
Not bad.
All right, guys, so this is where we are going to take you today. So your flight path, you'll see very WestJetty, right? So we want to kind of reframe how you view conflict. That is a very, very important step. It is something we really endeavor to show all of our WestJetters, so we'll talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about biology. Things that happen that we don't necessarily want to have happen, but they do. Communication styles, so identifying your own communication style, along with the other people that you are working with, going to be very important. We're going to talk a little bit about last. I can't give it away right now, so we're going to save it for almost last. We should have put that last, now that I think about it. And last but not least, empowerment. So just, empowerment's a big deal at WestJet, but we're going to focus on how to implement it for yourselves. So what that means to empower you to make the best decisions and your citizens as well. Perfect. You can click.
All right, so we are going to look at reading your everyday typical experience. So what we'd like you to do is to take a moment and think about your everyday interactions. So going to the gas station and getting gas, going to the bank to get money. Everyday typical interactions, customer service based, how would you rate the service that you receive?
So let's break it down. And you can see we've got a scale up. So 1 to 10, 1, not so great. The 10, fantastic. So let's just see a show of hands. There's the interaction. This is the easy part again. Let's see if anyone rates it 1, 2, or 3. Everyday interactions. You guys are very nice people. 1, 2, or 3. So not so great. What about a 9 or a 10, your everyday interactions?
We need to move here.
Yeah,
Perfect.
see, there's more hands than I'm used to. What about all the numbers in between? The everyday average. Well, there you go. So, we have a great saying at WestJet. Average is the enemy of greatness. And in order to get those 9s and 10s, and in order to satisfy the people that you're working with, you really, really need to be able to resolve conflict in an effective way. So that is kind of where we're going to take you. So what we want to start off with is sharing just a couple of stories from our days on the floor as customer service agents when we were providing the service and maybe we didn't do such a fantastic job.
All right, so my stellar customer service moment was I was a gate agent and I had 2 guests that came forward to me. We were boarding, so there's a lot that goes on during that boarding process where the interactions are not always as quick. And I had 2 guests come forward to me saying that they had paid for seats together prior to showing up at the airport, and for whatever reason those seats were no longer available together. So they came up to me very emotional, very upset, which is certainly understandable. And instead of taking the time, I was just like, I'm sorry that happened. I don't really have the time right now to help you with that, but get on board the aircraft, find your seat, and we'll deal with it once we get everything settled. For me in the moment, felt like a great answer. As you'll see later this afternoon when we take you to the end of this session, there were better ways for us to deal with that, and we'll go through how I could have appropriately dealt with that situation.
Perfect. And my example is when I was working the check-in counters. Have we all flown or traveled in the winter? You're all here. So maybe, yeah, potentially. So pretty brand new WestJetter, that's what we call ourselves, working on the floor, and unfortunately first winter season, not feeling so confident maybe, and Carrie, lucky her, got stationed at the desks where all she's going to deal with today is everyone that's not making their flights. Yes, it's great.
Where every agent wants to be.
It's true. We just throw them in. You learn as you go. So there I am, feeling pretty good. Things are going pretty well, and I turn and I look at the lineup, and I can see one gentleman in that line stirring the pot. And he's angry, and he's red-faced, and he's doing the little walk around, and I'm standing there going, if the line keeps going like this, I'm ending up with this person. We've all been there. You stand there, you know everybody's watching you, like right now, and you're like, oh my goodness. If I don't all of a sudden have a phone call, imaginary. If my printers don't all of a sudden break, also imaginary, this person's coming to me. So you're dreading it right from the get-go. Lo and behold, he storms up. I want to melt into my imaginary hole, and he demands to know why he can't have a private jet chartered to take him where he needs to go. That was my face. I don't have a great poker face. So I apologized in a very emotional way and tried to explain to him the intricacies of WestJet's world and how our planes work. And your plane is really going from A to B to C to D to E, and that's not, that's why you're not getting to where you need to go. Do you think that gentleman cared about any of those things? No. Lo and behold, he snatched up his new boarding pass for his new flight and stormed away, with my name and employee number, of course. So we'll talk about how maybe I could have handled that a little bit better at the end of today. Awesome. Perfect. All right, so let's just transition a little bit into the tools and how you view conflict. So many of you may see it like this. No one likes conflict at the end of the day. So we might like to hide behind our desk, bring out the big cannons, and shoot it out of the sky. Let's not deal with this whatsoever. Well, we can't do that. And we said, average is the enemy of greatness. So in order to have those great experiences, you have to be able to do this. So I want you to rethink conflict. Think about how you feel about it. So you need to view it as an opportunity. It is not a personal attack. It is not a hindrance, because lo and behold, if someone is bringing you an issue, they're giving you the chance to work with them. Because where else can they go, folks? Someone can yell it out. We're an interactive, fun bunch. Social media. We have friends, social media, right? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the million and other one things that I don't even know about anymore. That's where it ends up. Yeah, so we want to give them the chance to work with us. So it's very, very important to reframe how you view that. Opportunity, all the way. That's really what we want to focus on. And our biology. Has everyone seen this before? Fight versus flight. Have you felt it on more than one occasion? Yeah, for sure. You get into those tense meetings, not feeling so great, someone's challenging your point of view. Not the greatest feeling in the world. So we have a lot of instinctive mental reactions. So think fight first. Instinctive mental reaction. What's it going to be, right? So I want to put them in their place. I'm going to show them. I'm going to bully them into seeing my point of view because I don't have time to hear this today. Or flight, like myself at the check-in counters. Why me? If I don't make eye contact, they can't see me, and I'll just meld into my circumstances, and no one's going to know I'm even here. Get me out of here. So there's all of those things happening right away. There's also the physiological side. So that's instinctive as well. You may have felt this before. So what happens when we have conflict come at us? Do you feel your heart rate go up? Yes, absolutely. Do you tend to get a little bit sweaty maybe? Hands start to shake a little bit. All of those things happen. Your muscles clench up. So all of a sudden, if you're in fight mode, like a lot of us are, we feel our muscles pop up. We want to make ourselves bigger so that our opponent's going to be scared of us because it's that fight. Or flight, we want to shrink down and not look so big. So we want to get out of there. So we really have to pay attention to all of those things. So why do we react this way? Thank your brains, ladies and gentlemen. They are a wonderful thing, but they kind of work against us a little bit sometimes as well. So have any of you heard a little bit of research about left versus right brain? Yeah, maybe, right? So there's a lot of research out there that talks about left brain being very logical. So when we think logical, we think about analyzing problems and situations. Right side, opposite of that. So that is the side of my husband, very emotional and not so rational all the time. It's kind of how it works. So in a stressful situation, what has been shown is sometimes left and right side don't work together so much. What we've found now in a lot more research is you actually use all of your brain. You need all of those parts working together to come up with those creative solutions. However, when you have conflict, you take a look at that brain on the bottom there, and what happens? Stress pops in. And stress literally hijacks your brain, takes over. So all of those things that we just talked about, that's what's happening. All stress-induced. You kind of go back to that natural mode of fight versus flight, get me out of here, or I'm going to take the person out that's kind of, not having the same ideas as me. So that's really why it happens, just to think about those things. So what do you need to do? Well, you kind of need to channel your inner calm. So we're not going to stand up here and flap our arms around. That's not what this is all about.
Do some yoga.
Kaylee can if she really wants to.
Nope.
Okay, just checking. Not probably the best ways, but you'd be surprised. We hear a lot about positive reaffirmation. And everybody kind of smiles and is like, oh yeah, for sure, we hear about this all the time. It works. And we talk about this with our agents all the time. So you need to think to yourself, I can handle this situation. Or even better, I can resolve this in under 5 minutes. No problem. That's really what we try and ingrain in all of our WestJetters, and that's really what you have to force yourself to do in those conflicting situations as well. So very, very, very important. You also need to pull yourself out of those instinctive physiological reactions that we talked about. So, if we are in fight mode, show me fight mode. Beautiful. Kind of need to pull ourselves out. So we talked about what happened with your muscles clenching up. You need to physically relax yourself. Bring your shoulders down and back. Take a deep breath. Breathing, believe it or not, folks, it makes a huge difference. So, I want you to all do me a favor and take in a deep breath. And let it out nice and slow. So, just a curious question, and we'll look at this a little bit more in a second. Where did you feel your breath coming from? So I'll just get a show of hands. Did you feel it coming from your chest? Up here? Show of hands. Okay. What about down at your belly? There we go. We have a lot of relaxed people in Saskatchewan. We definitely need to move here.
Yep.
So absolutely. That's really what you need to do and think about. So we need to channel our inner calm a lot. All right, so we have a video, which I promise I will show in a moment. And this video was brought to us by Dr. Peter Jensen. Has anyone heard of Dr. Jensen out there? No problem. One, maybe? Yep. So he's a renowned sports psychologist, basically. And he came to WestJet and he provided a few pieces for us on energy management and how we can best perform and how we can work through those stressful situations and how important it is, just those basic tiny things that you can do to help yourself when you're feeling stressed. So let's take a look and see what he has to say. We hope.
So if you think of an organization as a power plant, then managers become, or leaders become, in a way, surge protectors. They're trying to keep people from getting overwhelmed, overloaded, with too much dumped on them. Whereas each individual is very much trying to regulate their own energy and how it goes. And energy management is huge, because if you stop and think about it, the number of hours has not changed in a day. And yet people think time management will solve all their issues, when in fact it's energy management. That's where we have control, because we have a finite amount of time, but we have an unlimited supply of energy. And how you use energy and where you direct it in what you're doing is absolutely critical, absolutely critical. And so let's talk a little bit about this whole area of energy management. Well, there's a need, first of all, to make sure that you have enough of it. And that there's only one way to acquire it. That's through sleep. Sleep is absolutely essential. You know, people who engage in physical fitness often think that they get fit when they're working out. You don't get fit when you're working out. You actually get fit when you're sleeping. That's when the body makes all the small repairs, muscle tears, etc., that help make you stronger or faster or more flexible. The second thing about energy is sometimes it gets too high, and we get into what we call the choker's profile. And we need to have ways of bringing our energy level down. And the metaphor I like to use is, think of yourself as a thermostat, not a thermometer. A thermometer constantly rises to the temperature in the environment. If things are hot, it gets hot. If things are cold and flat, it gets cold and flat. A thermostat, on the other hand, you are in control. You set it. And sometimes you have to take it down, very often in high-stress environments. But there are times where you have to energize, where you have to take it up. You're not going to be very good at energy management if you're not aware. You're going to constantly be remembering after the fact what you should have done. And we're all very good at that. You know, we're always very good at 10 minutes after we've walked into one of our kids' rooms and we haven't behaved the way a really decent parent ought to behave. We're going, I wish I hadn't said it that. I wish I hadn't done this. I wish I hadn't done that. It's being able to become consciously competent and notice in the moment. Okay? And the things that you're going to notice most are the physical things, like the things that go on at the body level. Did your face get red? Did your arms cross? Did your breathing change? Or some thoughts that come to mind. So mind, body, feelings. And noticing those little oil lights when they go on, and then being able to go, whoa, just a minute. This isn't working right now. And you know, one of the primary ways of managing energy, and one of the primary ways I teach athletes to manage energy, is through breathing techniques. And the reason for that is that almost all of us experience the stress of high arousal physically, in the chest, the shoulders, sometimes headaches, etc. And so why would you go in at the mind to change the body when you could go in at the body to change the body? And so going in with a direct hit using a breathing technique is very powerful. And if you think of diaphragmatic breathing, which is the way we're wired to breathe, we've moved away from that quite dramatically. And it's really an interesting thing, actually. It's a gas issue, oddly enough, which really sounds strange. But it's the balance between carbon dioxide and oxygen in our system. That when we shallow breathe up here, when tension rises, and it truly does rise, our center of gravity comes up, our shoulders come up, heck, our voice comes up. Like tension rises, what starts to happen is we get rid of too much carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is sort of like a natural tranquilizer. And the balance between the two of them gets mixed up. Whereas if you think a young baby, if you imagine a young baby lying on its back asleep, what rises and falls? Well, the diaphragm. The stomach area rises and falls because, you know, they know how to breathe. They have no shares of Enron. They haven't had to run a meeting. They haven't written any exams yet. So they breathe the way we were designed to breathe, from the diaphragm. And so, you know, one of the things I teach the athletes I work with is start by putting a hand on your upper chest and a hand here. And when you breathe, see which hand comes out first. And try to get this hand to come out first. And all of a sudden the breath starts to deepen. And then I try to encourage them to make the exhalation longer than the inhalation. And an interesting thing starts to happen. We begin to relax. Anytime you exhale over a longer period of time than you inhale, you start to relax. When you do the reverse, you push air out quickly, you energize. And so using breathing to moderate and control your energy is a fabulous mechanism. And the other reason it's so good, it's totally unobtrusive. I mean, I can be standing in a meeting where I got challenged, and I can feel my face get red, and I can feel my arms cross and all that stuff, and I can breathe, and no one knows I'm doing it, because it's totally unobtrusive. As a matter of fact, if you stop breathing for an extended period of time when you're with a group, it really throws the group off. Resiliency. You know, for years and years, I was under the misconception that resiliency had to do with you build a thicker skin. You build a bigger suit of armor to protect you from whatever. When in fact, resiliency is about how quickly do you bounce back to your normal shape. Okay? See, this basketball is badly out of shape right now. In order for it to be resilient, if it were a resilient object, it would need to be able to get itself back to its normal shape. And resiliency is like that. Like, how quickly do you recover from setbacks? The studies they've done on swimmers, for example, where they'll have them swim a trial in the morning and they'll tell them an inaccurate time. They'll tell all the swimmers that they swam slower than they actually swam. And they look to see who swims fastest that evening. And the most resilient swimmers swim even quicker than their real time in the morning in the evening swim, because they bounce back. And so resiliency is tied to optimism. Those who were less optimistic swam even worse in the evening. They didn't have resiliency. How quickly do you bounce back from a setback, a disappointment, a tough meeting? And learning to get back to you and all of who you are is important. And you know, we might look at pressure now a little more differently when we consider this concept of resiliency. I was doing a workshop down in Houston a while back, and I had the great occasion to meet a man named Larry, and he told me an absolutely terrific story. And the story was about a young man that he was working with, a young basketball player actually, and Larry works with a large potash corporation. And he was helping this young man out. And the young man was constantly talking about how much pressure he was under. He didn't have a father, he only had a mother. His mother worked all kinds of hours, pressure. And Larry finally said to him, look, we're all under pressure, I'm under pressure. My father, at 8 years of age, I lost my father. I understand what this is all about. And he said, look, let's just have a talk about this out in the driveway. So they went out into the driveway, and Larry has a basketball hoop and things out there, and the kid was a basketball player. And so he took a basketball, and he picked the basketball up, and he bounced the ball over to the young man. And he said, how's that going to work? And it was a basketball like this basketball, full of air, right? And the guy bounced it. Yeah, that's great. That's going to work fine, Larry. He said, oh, really? He said, how about this one? And he threw over the flat one that just plopped on the ground. And the young man said, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. And Larry said to him, that's right. You know, no pressure, no bounce. No pressure, no energy. You get your drive, you get your bounce, you get your energy from pressure. Too much, overinflate the ball and it'll break. But you get the right amount of pressure into the ball, wow. You got a ball that's going to work really, really well. And so it is in life, you know. We need the pressure to keep us moving forward, to challenge us. We're not here to go through life like Muzak. Like, the idea is to go through life growing and developing each and every day. And you need a little bit of pressure to keep your bounce, to get your energy to where it needs to be in order to grow and develop to where you need to be.
All right, so that is what Dr. Jensen has to say about energy management. So we're just going to take a second and recap what we've done so far. Again, you really need to push yourselves. You need to reframe how you're looking at conflict. So again, not that horrible thing that you're going to dread anymore. Difficult citizen coming up with one of those tough situations. You're going to embrace it. It is an absolute opportunity for you to work together and resolve that conflict. If you leave it, things fester. So we've done research even at WestJet that proves when things don't go to plan and we manage to fix these things and make it better, our guests, we call people that travel with us guests, are more loyal. They're more likely even to recommend us to their friends. That's what you really want to drive home when you're dealing with even your citizens out in the communities as well. Physiology, again, a big part of it. So you really need to read in yourself what is going on and consciously relax, manage your energy. Pressure isn't a horrible thing, as Dr. Jensen has said. It kind of makes us work a little bit harder. And also, read that physiological, instinctive reaction in the people that you're working with. You may have someone in your community that you know really well. They are logical, they are creative, they are a fantastic person, but the person standing in front of you is not that person today. So now you know why these things happen. Probably not the best time to tell them that their brain is being hijacked and go through all of those important points. However, have it in the back of your head. So that's what we have managed so far. Just take a moment as we're going forward as well. Think of your own story. So your own customer service story, because we are all in the business of customer service. WestJet does it on planes, you do it out in your communities. So think of that time where you maybe didn't have the best experience, so you can come back to it at the end of today as well.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. So we've talked about the biological and the physical reactions that some of us get when we are in conflict. And where we're going to take you now is talking and looking at the communication styles that all of us have and trying to figure out which one do we each personally own and what do the people that are coming to us in our communities, what do they come forward with us and what communication style are they bringing? And as you see as we go through this, you'll link how these two things link together and what we can do to hopefully create great communication to lower down those elements of conflict and really move forward with a positive experience. So what I'm going to ask you to do, actually, I'm going to talk to this first and then I'll ask you to do something. We have 4 communication styles that would be identified by individuals. So we're going to look at the colors red, yellow, green, and blue. What I'm going to ask you now to do is I want you to take a moment and I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes. Once you've closed your eyes, I'm going to read to you some characteristics and I want you to think to yourself, does this sound like me? Okay? So I'm going to do that for red. I'm going to do that for yellow, I'm going to do that for green, and I'm going to do that for blue. And I want you to figure out which one sounds the most like you. So, as a red, you're creative, controlling, opinionated, fast-paced, competitive, takes risks, easily bored, assertive, and outspoken. And I know some of those sound negative. You're not a horrible person. They're positive things. With a show of hands, who identifies as red? Perfect. So close your eyes again if you open them. For our yellow, if you are yellow, you might be animated, a big picture thinker, energetic, not detail-oriented, spontaneous, charming, curious, impulsive, and innovative. By a show of hands, who thinks that that sounds like them? Nothing wrong with that. I'm a yellow too. It's okay. And our green. So if you are green, you might correlate with being friendly, methodical, a trust builder, empathetic, dislikes conflict, patient, easygoing, positive, and reserved. Show of hands are green. Great. And last but not least, blue. These people have the traits of intellectual, goes by the rules, private, hesitant, perfectionist, diplomatic, thorough, orderly, and sometimes painstakingly accurate. Show of hands? Yeah? It's okay. We have some people like quivering in the corner being like, I'm not putting my hand up to any of those. Those do not sound great. The reason that I wanted to bring these traits to your attention is you might identify that you have the characteristics of one more than the other. For example, for myself, I identify as a high yellow communicator. Shocking, I know. And I am very low on blue and red, okay? That doesn't make me a bad person. It does not say that I cannot communicate with my fellow peers or my leaders. It just shows to me that I have areas in which I can go into and pull out the tasks that I need to from each group, okay? What I want you to take away is knowing that this is not a label. So you don't label yourself as one thing and that's, I'm a yellow, I'm living my life as a yellow, not doing anything else. what I'm going to walk you through is how you have to adapt and change and work with those that you're included with to make the best of your communication. So, with that, let's start with our reds. So, if you identify as a red, okay, or you think, yeah, I feel like that sounds like me, this person typically emphasizes action and is task-oriented. They focus on accomplishing tasks without unnecessary delays. They're fast-paced, easy to know where they stand on issues. They take responsibility and does what is necessary to succeed. Okay? This is actually 3% of the population identify as being a high red communicator. These people typically ask the how questions. Learning how to use this thing. Next we have the yellow. So if you are a yellow communicator, you emphasize ideas and concepts. You value continuous investigation, re-examination, and questioning of others and yourself as well. You communicate easily and thrive socially. You're intuitive and empathetic with people, and you carry a high energy level. These people typically ask a lot of questions. And I'm sure you all know this yellow in your life. These people, the group of yellow actually makes up 11% of the population. Next we have our green. We both have dogs, so we thought this was appropriate. So if you work in a green communication style, most of the time that's how you identify. You emphasize human interactions. You seek contact with others. You focus on emotions of a situation of others as well as your own. So you become very emotionally engaged in your conversations. You're a good listener. You are predictably open and honest, and you encourage others through appreciation, much like my friend Carrie here.
Thank you.
No problem. These people tend to ask the questions of how. How are we going to get there? How does this impact those around me? Because they care a lot about the emotional state of those around them. And shockingly enough, the green communication style is actually 69% of our population. Last but not least, we have blue. So, if you are a person that identifies as a high blue, you emphasize logic, order, thoroughness, and structure. You focus on analyzing, dissecting, and solving problems. You like to give advice based on facts. You do not like beating around the bush. Give me the facts. You're fair and unbiased. You take calculated risk, and you're good on follow-up and follow-through. Our blue communicators tend to ask those why questions and make up 17% of our population. So why does this matter? What does this do for me? Well, I want to paint a picture for you. I'm in the business of adult education. I train new agents, existing agents. Let's all imagine, as a trainer, I stayed in the yellow communication style for the entire training. Or I presented to you today here in a yellow communication style. If it was in the training environment, nothing would get done. I would send agents back to the airport, and I'd be like, you know what, life's a party, you're going to learn it on the floor, don't worry about it, let's just have a good time here in this environment. Okay? I need to be cautious of that, and when I am delivering training, and for you when you are having your meetings communicating with whether it be your citizens or fellow employees or your fellow designates, you need to be able to come into those other colors. So when I am training, I need to remember to be that person in a red communication style. For my blues, I need to remember, I need to give them facts. They don't want to know the ifs, ands, or but, or the gray. Come to them with the facts. We also need to look at it as if a yellow communicator sees the big picture, someone with a blue communication style is going to be the one that helps them get there and kind of gives that road and pathway for them to stay on task. So before I move on to strengths and liabilities of each color, I'm going to get right on the easel. That's what it would be.
Perfect.
A resource for you where if you are interested in finding out, am I a high yellow, am I a high blue, where do I stand on this communication style spectrum, there is a website that you can go to. It's TonyRobbins.com. And if you click on the right-hand corner, it says resources. And from there, you're going to click on DISC. DISC is essentially the exact same mentality as these colors. What's going to happen is it's going to walk you through about a 10-minute survey, asking you lots and lots of questions. Well, not lots, an average amount for getting the right answer. From there, it will actually generate for you a 22-page report on which communication style you likely identify as a high in and which ones you are lower identified. And from there, it will give you techniques of what kind of environments you thrive in, what types of environments you can work on, and how can you and I work with those in other colors, which is extremely important in the industry of customer service, which we are all in. So, just a show of hands, has anybody taken a personality communication styles survey test before? And did you like the results? Yeah? Just someone throw out there, what was the reason you enjoyed doing a survey like that? Sorry? Mandatory. I love when things are mandatory because you don't have a choice. Perfect. It was mandatory. But did you learn something from that experience? Maybe? Yeah? One thing at least? And that's the whole point of educating yourself and identifying, which will only make your life easier when you're dealing with others. I should make that mandatory. Mandatory. TonyRobbins.com. So, let's look at the strengths and liabilities of each of these groups, because this is extremely important when we're looking at how we're dealing with adapting and keeping things going. So, if you identify as a red communicator, your strengths are, you are results-oriented. You take on new, often risky challenges and are quite quick to set goals and work hard to achieve them. Your staying in control is very important. Reds are often selected as leaders due to their willingness to blaze new trails and work hard. Reds are assertive and outspoken. So with strengths also come liabilities, or what we like to say weaknesses. Liabilities sounds a little bit nicer. So some liabilities or weaknesses with a red style communicator. You can be seen as impatient with those working too slowly, or what you perceive as someone working too slowly, right? You can be judgmental and poor listener, preferring the bottom line approach and cuts people off. Often the Lone Ranger, and have some difficulty in trusting others with work. And lastly, you need to be in control because it causes frustration and tendencies to dominate others. Sounds pretty awesome. But again, something that we can work towards if that is the color that we identify high in. Our yellow group, your strengths. Your strengths are, you enjoy talking to anyone, anytime about their ideas. You like being animated, spontaneous, and you have a really high energy. You're generally an excellent presenter and very persuasive. You like variety, are curious, and are sometimes impulsive. I 100% agree with that. We do not like to be tied down on one thing and quickly lose interest in projects after startup. And lastly, people are drawn to us because of our intuitive connections and the love of feeling like you are the life of the party. So some weaknesses with this yellow group. Some weaknesses include, you may not always be taken seriously, as you would rather talk than listen. Dun dun dun. Operational follow-through is often a problem as you tend to get bored easily. You often fall in a trap of over-promising and under-delivering, and you tend to not manage time or finances very well. Again, as I go through these, start thinking to yourself, which color is the strength to my weakness, right? So our green group, your strengths, if you identify it as a high green. You are extremely helpful and caring, sometimes to a fault. You make good decisions and make good mediators and make everyone in the group feel comfortable because you are concerned about emotion. While you like people, you are generally reserved in the way you communicate with others. You instill trust in others who work with you. You're patient, thorough, and tolerant of people, and greens can move mountains one piece at a time. In a meeting situation, if you are in a meeting, a green can sometimes come across as unengaged and unwilling to participate, when in fact, a green personality communicating style is actually the one that is sitting back, observing what is going on around them, and when they do contribute, it is very beneficial to the group conversation. Something you might not have known. So what are the weaknesses of our green friends? Greens focus on people issues over business progress, although they are reluctant to correct difficult people situations. Generally do not like risk-taking and surprises. They can see both sides of an issue, giving up progress for the sake of harmony so decisions may not come easily to them. And lastly, they can be overly sensitive to criticism. So something to keep in mind, right? Lastly, we have blue. Our strengths in blue would be, blues are expert analysis and problem solvers. They like to follow the rules and think things through slowly and carefully, questioning and evaluating nearly everything. They don't like to be wrong and hate to make mistakes. Tending to perfectionists, you can trust that no stone will be left unturned. Ironically enough, I identify as a high yellow communicator. My husband identifies as a very high blue communicator, which in most situations works out really well and pairs nicely. However, as a yellow, if I want to go buy a new TV, I want it now. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I'm like, I'm going to get this now. Where my husband will be like, let's take a minute. Do you need the TV? What is the best price on this TV that we can get? Let me do my research and figure out, is LG better than Samsung, whatever it might be. That works, right? So not only do we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. And when we don't pay attention to these and we don't adapt, we risk the following. So let's just take a look at this text here. Mom, what does IDK, LY, and TTYL mean? To which their child responds, I don't know, love you, talk to you later. Which mom replies, okay, I'll ask your sister. Right? It can be lost in translation. And these are the things that we need to keep in mind. So it's crucial to identify our style and be able to adjust and adapt. Otherwise, we miss the crucial pieces to the conversation, which in turn likely is going to elevate that conflict with the people you're dealing with. So once you've identified your own style, you can work to communicate more effectively by. So if you identify as a red, we can learn to be more patient when we're dealing with people. We can talk less, listen more, focus more on feelings and emotion, and be careful not to dominate the conversation and allow for small talk. I could talk your ear off for days. And if I communicate with a red, they likely don't care, but they are going to embrace that, knowing I'm coming to them in a yellow communication style. It might be painful for some of you. You'll make it through. If you identify as a yellow, you need to remember to talk less. Pay attention to details, keep to the subject, remember to follow up, and be more direct. If you identify as green, you might want to embrace talking more. I wish that was in my line as yellow, talk more, it'd be great. Talk more, be more assertive and share your opinions, be more expressive and animated, be more results oriented, and keep your emotions in check, which can be hard for anybody. And lastly, if you identify as a blue, you want to remember to talk more, step back from details, be more expressive, spend more time chatting, and be careful not to appear cold and distant. So, how do we feel about that? Feeling great. I know, we're really like driving up your emotions here, being like, I love being that red person. But what do we do when we encounter these people? So what do you do when your citizens come forward and they approach you in a manner where you look at them and you're like, this is going to be good? Or you know that person because they're a family member or they're a friend, and you can understand the communication style that they might come to you with. We're going to look at how we embrace this, okay? And we're going to look at what do I need to communicate effectively with these different groups. So I've identified my color and my strengths and weaknesses. What do I now need to do when I am in a group situation or dealing one-on-one with these different styles? So, if you are being approached or in a meeting setting with reds, okay, your red group, to communicate effectively with reds, you want to be more specific, avoid theoretical issues, don't waste time, and don't make decisions for them. If you can do that, you're going to embrace and make the conversations easier. If you are dealing or communicating with a yellow, to make it effective, ask questions about their opinions and ideas. That is going to kill red people, okay? Ask them their questions, ask them for their ideas, and even just, the good old, yeah, okay, good, right? Don't rush the conversation. You're going to want to explore their ideas and let them take as much credit for ideas developed as possible. If you are in a setting or conversing with someone who is coming to you with a high green communication style, take the time to reflect feelings of cooperation instead of competition. Take time to develop a relationship. Listen to what they have to say and avoid logical debate of facts and encourage personal opinions. And lastly, if we are communicating with our blue friends, we want to be cautious about extending friendship too quickly, stick to specifics and give them the facts. We want to move slowly, we want to be prepared, and we want to provide evidence that your decision is logic and sound. So, it is our job, once we know the style in which we present and we communicate, it is on us to flex and change to those coming into our conversation. We cannot assume that the person coming to speak with us knows anything about communication styles. And it is on us as effective communicators and in the service of customer service to provide and be able to adapt and change to those people coming into our world. On the other side of that, always keep in mind the world does not run with only one communication style. And all these different communication styles with their strengths and their weaknesses pair together to create effective communication. And that is the key to making sure that we are consistently delivering and performing to our highest manner when we talk with communication, whether it be verbal, nonverbal, and delivering the best that we can to minimize that risk of conflict or making something bigger than it is.
Beautiful. I'm just curious, after having listened to Kaylee talk about communication styles, if anyone actually changed their mind. Or do you feel like now you're maybe a little bit more part of 2 or 3 communication styles? I'll be very honest, when I did my profile, there was a strong green element, but I like to be multicolored. So I got to come across with a little bit of yellow and a little bit of blue, but really low red, to be honest. So when you're looking at these things, don't feel like you have to be stuck, like Kaylee said, in one label. Embrace it, because you really want to be colorful, like the chameleons, so you can adapt to any situation that you're coming across. Very, very important.
Awesome.
All right, so let's take a little look at one of our strategies that we have. And this is something that we use with the last stratagem. So 4 very easy things, we hope, to remember that are going to help you resolve those difficult conversations, those difficult conflicting scenarios that you come across. So the first one, it's a pretty easy thing to do, and you are all doing a fantastic job of it right now. You need to listen. Very, very important. Human value. We want to intrinsically feel valued in everything that we do. So you need to prove that you're listening to those people that you are coming across. That can be very difficult to do. We all lead very busy lives. We have a lot of things going on. And you may feel right away, well, why is this person even coming to me? I don't have time to even deal with this today. Well, right away, you've got an inner dialogue going, and you're not listening actively. So we've probably all done it. We've got the questions going in our head. What's for dinner tonight? Oh my goodness, if this person keeps talking, traffic is going to be 10 times worse, and I'm going to be taking a longer time to get home. We start critiquing what the person is saying before they've even finished their sentence. Or my favorite, I am going to form a rebuttal to whatever you're saying before you've even finished. So you need to stop, remove all of those distractions, and listen actively. Listen to the details that they're coming across with. Otherwise, you end up kind of like that text message, and you miss the most important information. So very, very important.
Awesome. The next step in this process is acknowledge and apologize. So when we think of acknowledge, when someone comes forward to you with an issue, we want them to know that we understand what it is that they're saying. And acknowledging is a term and a phrase that we use quite often when we're dealing with guests is, what I hear you saying is, and repeating back what it is that we believe they are telling us. Not only does it show that you've been listening from the last step, but it encourages the person you're dealing with to say, okay, they get it. Or if the communication has been lost, this is our opportunity to regain where we went wrong and try and understand what it is that we need to deliver on. The other part to this is apologizing. And when we say apologizing, we always tell our agents it needs to be genuine and it needs to be authentic. I can remember when I was a kid and I did something horrible to my brother, and my mom would come running after me and say, Kaylee, you need to apologize to your brother right now. So I would stand there and I'd be like, sorry. Not sure really what I was apologizing for, and I'm sure some of you have been likely in that same situation. So when you're delivering an apology, we want to keep in mind that we want it to be genuine, apologizing for the problem that has been presented to us, and at that point, moving on to
solving. I'm also going to say one more thing about apologizing. It's one of the things that we see a lot in a lot of places. If you say, I'm sorry, but. Oh, I'm sorry, but you know what? You should have shown up at the airport a lot earlier to catch that flight. It is the worst possible thing you can do to a human being, because anything you've said before but, it's out the window. No one's paying attention to it anymore. Your apology is not genuine. It's, but now you're going to give me a life lesson on everything that I've done. So you kind of need to reformulate things if you're apologizing a little bit, which helps us solve the problem. So solving is a hard one. So we really need you to push the limits. You want this process to be as collaborative as possible. It can be difficult in a lot of situations. So Kaylee and I definitely work in a world where there is a lot of black and white. So there are regulations that we absolutely have to follow. But we want our agents, all of our WestJetters out there, to push for and look for the gray. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be black and white. We're very comfortable with what we know. I want you to push your boundaries. Work with the people around you. We feel a lot more valued if we're part of that process.
Awesome. And last to this diagram, we have to thank. I don't know, it's a diagram, it's something, it's a saying. And lastly, with thanking, it's all about ensuring the person you are working with feels valued once again, and to thank them. And it's not just as they're walking away, you're like, okay, great, thanks for stopping by. It's a genuine thank you for bringing this concern forward. They have chosen you to bring this problem forward to because they believe that you are the person that is going to solve it for them. And so that's what we want to reframe. When they come forward with an issue, it's, taking it on as, that's pretty awesome. You chose me to solve this problem. And we want to thank them for that and let them know that we want to remember that conflict in a difficult situations are our opportunities.
Perfect. All right, so last but not least, we get to talk a little bit about empowerment. So empowerment is a big deal at WestJet. Our amazing CEO, Greg Soretsky, likes to say, WestJetters are the CEOs of their own moments. Make the best decision in that moment. It's a great saying. We need to think about a few things, however. We want the process, as I said, when we're solving anything, to kind of be a joint piece that's going on. So I want to work with you, not against you. But you need to kind of set boundaries a little bit. So we've got a picture of a playground up here, and a group of psychologists studied a group of children playing at this playground. Look, probably just like this, got a great play structure, has a fence around it. So what they noticed, the children were everywhere, right to the fences, on the structure, having fun, doing their thing. So overnight, lo and behold, they took the fences away. So what do you think the kids did the next day? Take a wild guess. Do you think, let's just see a show of hands, that they ran everywhere wild?
Ran away.
Ran away. Do you think they actually clustered on the play structure? Yeah, you're right, for those of you that thought that. They actually stayed very, very, very close to the play structure. So the next day they put the fence up, kids were everywhere again. So what does that show us? When we don't know what our boundaries are, we like to stick to what we know. It's just easier. That is a very human thing to do. It's very natural. So again, I'm going to push you. When you have those circumstances, try and think outside of the box. What can I possibly do that's different this time? How am I going to push myself to the boundaries? One other thing just to think about when you're doing this is you do really need to think about setting some type of boundaries. Think about my personal story with the gentleman that would like a private jet. So if I come to someone and I say, well, what do you want me to do for you? What does that open up? Can of worms. Because you never know what they're going to say. And it's very hard to bring everybody back onto the same playing field after that point. Because they might be way over here in left field, and what I'm thinking is right down way here. So set up options. People love options. And when you provide an option, you are actually empowering them to make a choice. They feel much more valued with the conflict resolution, and everyone is going to have a much more positive experience. So just something to think about.
So in summary, this is where we're going to take you back to at the beginning where we shared with you our customer service stories. So if you remember, my story was at the gate. I had a very emotional guest come forward who was upset that the seats that they had purchased were no longer available. And I said, sorry, I can't really help you with that right now. If you could just take your seat on this aircraft and we'll figure it out when we get, going, which obviously didn't happen. If I knew then what I know now about communication styles, I would have been able to identify that this individual was likely coming to me in a green communication form. In which case, very emotional, very heightened sense of this isn't fair. And I approached it in an unsuccessful manner with dealing with that conflict, to which there was no resolution. This guest left, and I did not do the best that I could. I didn't use the last technique, right? I didn't listen to what the issue was. I didn't say sorry. I didn't solve it. I sent it onto the aircraft and hoped that someone else was going to solve the problem for me. To which extent, had I known now, I would have likely dealt with that a lot better.
Perfect. And my story about my gentleman traveling. If I had been paying attention to the cues, first of all, I dreaded the conflict, not an opportunity. It was sink into the hole and get me out of here before anything else happens. Not good. Conflict is an opportunity. So he came forward and he was upset. So be it. Where's the positive reaffirmations? I can solve it. I have many, many tools at my fingertips, and I can do this. No. The gentleman was likely red, wanted answers right away, and I went right into the green, I'm so sorry, emotional, and I'm going to tell you everything about my business, and hopefully you'll feel a little bit better about things after I'm done. Nope. That ended up driving him away completely. So I didn't get a chance to look at other options for him. I didn't get a chance to maybe draw out a few other important pieces of information. Certainly didn't solve the problem, and I definitely didn't thank him for bringing that forward. So a failure on my part for sure.
Which happens to the best of us, and that's what's important to remember, and to recognize the areas in which we can develop for that next time. So moving forward, what we want to recap and kind of tie it all together for you when dealing with your citizens in your everyday interactions, we want to remember a few things that we've talked about here today.
So again, I'm going to drive it home. Conflict, opportunity. Not a personal attack, not something that you're going to dread and shy away from, something that you are going to embrace. Bring it on. In a good way, not a fight way.
Absolutely. We want to recognize our preferred personal communication styles and know our strengths and weaknesses. We want to implement the last technique and model and adapt to those around us. And lastly, we want to remember to empower our citizens wherever possible while always remembering to set those boundaries. Test your limits and always remember to play to the fence.
And I think that sums it up. So thank you for your attention, everyone. And we hope that we provided you a few tools so that conflict hopefully will not suck the life out of you next time you encounter it.
Ladies, thank you very much, and I really appreciate the whole audience for staying right through. You guys have learned a lot, and when we go back to our communities, go back to what we do as elected officials, most of us know that we are those high reds and yellows, and we deal with a lot of people who come in, and their issues we don't always see the same. So ladies, thank you very much. This beats the heck out of Myers-Briggs, because I can understand this, so thank you very much. I want to say on behalf of, actually, do we have questions for the ladies? Please come up to the microphones if you do. Somebody's got to have a question. All right, they're going to stay up here for us, so I want to thank very much Kaylee and Carrie for their time and their expertise in sharing with us their experience and their ability to be able to handle these challenging situations. Ladies, thank you very much on behalf of SUMA and the Board of Directors. We want to provide you with a thank you card, but also with a scholarship, sorry, hang on a second, we're going to back that up. We want to provide you with a contribution to a scholarship to the Mike Badham Fund. Mike Badham was a mentor of mine who passed away 9 years ago, holds high regard in my heart. So ladies, thank you very much.
We hope you learned a lot. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Yes.